Why God's chosen ones suffer the most. There is a strange paradox woven into the fabric of existence, one that has puzzled prophets, saints, and seekers for centuries. Why is it that the people who seem most spiritually attuned, most sincere in heart, and most gifted with inner light are often the ones who suffer the most in life? Why are the ones chosen by God, the ones who carry a higher purpose, frequently misunderstood, rejected, betrayed, and tested to the breaking point? If you have ever asked yourself, why is my life filled with so much pain when all I want is to do good? You are not alone. If your path has been one of loneliness, of inner battles, of relentless storms, it may not be because you are cursed, weak, or forgotten. It may be because you are called. The truth is, being chosen does not mean being comfortable. Being chosen does not mean living a life of ease or applause. In fact, it often means the exact opposite. It means you will walk through fire when others get to rest. It means you will be refined, broken down, and rebuilt again, not because you are lesser, but because you are meant for more. Throughout history, we see this pattern repeat. Moses was exiled. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and thrown into a pit. David was hunted before he became king. Even Jesus himself, the ultimate chosen one, was mocked, tortured, and crucified, not in spite of his calling, but because of it. There is something about pain that reveals the soul, something about suffering that carves out space within us for wisdom, compassion, and divine power. It is in the crushing that the fragrance of the anointing is released. It is in the wilderness that the voice of God becomes clearest. This message is not for everyone. It is for those who feel out of place, for those who have cried out in the night and heard no answer, for those who have been rejected by the world but cannot shake the feeling that they were made for something greater. This is not a message of despair. It is a message of revelation, a truth that may finally explain why your life has been what it has been. Because when God marks you, the world will often misunderstand you. When God sets you apart, the enemy will do everything to tear you down. But none of it is wasted. Every tear, every wound, every lonely night is part of the divine preparation. You are not being destroyed. You are being forged. So now, let us go deeper. Let us peel back the veil and explore this sacred mystery. Why do God's chosen ones suffer the most? The hidden identity. Who are God's chosen ones? To understand why God's chosen ones suffer the most, we must begin with a deeper understanding of who they are. Because the truth is, most of them don't even know they are chosen. Not at first. God's chosen ones rarely come into this world with crowns on their heads or trumpets announcing their arrival. More often, they are born into chaos, into broken homes, wounded bloodlines, and environments that never feel like home. They are the misfits, the black sheep, the ones who never quite fit in. From a young age, they feel different, even if they can't explain why. They ask questions others avoid. They sense things others ignore. They see beauty in what is broken. They carry a depth inside them that the world isn't ready for. Their lives are marked not by outward signs of power, but by inward intensity, a spiritual sensitivity that makes them feel everything more deeply. Joy is deeper. Pain is deeper. Loneliness is sharper. It's as if they were born with a radar tuned to another frequency, one that picks up the silent cries of the world around them. And while others can easily ignore the injustice, the cruelty, the emptiness, the chosen ones cannot. Something inside them burns when things are not right. Something inside them is always calling them higher. They may not be rich, influential, or powerful in the eyes of society, but they possess a wealth that the world cannot see, a wealth of soul, of insight, of unshakable purpose. And this makes them targets. Because when you carry light in a dark world, you become a threat. And when you are chosen for divine purpose, the enemy sees you long before you see yourself. Often, the chosen ones experience a strange series of events in their early lives: repeated betrayals, unexpected losses, sudden shifts, and deep emotional wounds. These are not accidents. These are the markings of those who are being shaped, molded, and refined. Because before God can use someone greatly, He must prepare them thoroughly. And that preparation does not take place in comfort. It takes place in wilderness, in exile, in the hidden places where no one sees, but God is working. Have you ever felt like your life has been one long preparation for something you can't quite name? That no matter how hard you try to live a normal life, something keeps pulling you into deeper water? That every time you try to settle, something disrupts it? That's not coincidence. That's calling. God's chosen ones often carry generational assignments. They are the ones sent to break the cycles of addiction, abuse, and fear that plague their families for generations. They are the ones chosen to walk a different path, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And because of this, their path is lonelier. Their battles are greater. Their burdens are heavier. But so is their anointing. One of the most difficult parts of being chosen is the isolation. The world doesn't understand them, and at times, neither do their families, their friends, or even their churches. They are told to just be normal, to stop thinking too much, to fit in. But they can't. Not because they don't want to, but because they weren't meant to. You cannot conform when you were created to transform. The chosen ones are called to walk through the fire, not to burn, but to emerge refined. They are sent into the storm, not to drown, but to learn how to speak to the wind. They are cast into pits, not to be buried, but to discover the power of resurrection. Every pain they endure has purpose. Every rejection is redirection. Every wound becomes a well of wisdom from which others will someday drink. Their lives are prophetic in nature. That means what they live through is not just for them. It's for others. Their suffering becomes the message. Their scars become maps for others to follow. Their tears become testimonies. That's why their journey is so hard, because they are not walking just for themselves. They are paving roads for others who haven't yet awakened. And yet, for all their burdens, there is a strange peace that often surrounds them. A quiet knowing. A spiritual gravity. Even when they don't have answers, they have faith. Even when they're exhausted, they keep moving forward. Why? Because somewhere deep in their soul, they know they were not made to quit. They know they are not victims of fate, but vessels of purpose. You see, the chosen ones are not chosen for comfort. They are chosen for change. They are not selected because they are perfect, but because they are willing. Willing to walk alone if they must. Willing to keep believing even when everything is falling apart. Willing to forgive, to rise, to try again. Willing to carry a burden others would run from. Because they know the weight of purpose is far greater than the pain of rejection. So who are God's chosen ones? They are the ones you often overlook. The ones who suffer in silence. The ones who rise after every fall. The ones who love fiercely, even when they've been broken. They are not perfect, but they are persistent. Not always strong, but always surrendered. They are God's hidden warriors, His secret weapons, His sacred vessels, carrying light into the darkest places of the earth. They may not wear robes or titles. They may not stand on stages or speak with eloquence. But make no mistake, they are marked. Marked by grace. Marked by fire. Marked by purpose. And if anything in your spirit stirred while hearing this, it may be because you are one of them. The furnace of suffering, why their pain is greater. If you have ever asked, why is my life so heavy while others seem to move through life with ease? Then know this. It is not because God has abandoned you. It is because He is refining you. Pain is not a punishment for the chosen. It is a preparation. There is a furnace that every chosen one must pass through. Not once, not twice, but many times. This furnace is not made of fire and smoke. It is made of heartbreak, betrayal, isolation, loss, and crushing disappointment. And yet, it is in this furnace where God does His deepest work. Think of gold. Before it becomes beautiful and valuable, it must be melted down by fire. The impurities must rise to the surface and be removed. The same is true for those marked by God. The greater the calling, the deeper the refining. And this refining is painful. It strips away pride, comfort, illusions, and control. It exposes every false identity you've worn, every crutch you've leaned on, and every part of you that cannot carry the weight of your divine assignment. So why is their pain greater? Because chosen ones are not called to live ordinary lives. They are called to carry extraordinary power, and that power requires purity, humility, and spiritual resilience. You cannot carry the healing for others unless you've bled first. You cannot offer wisdom unless you've been brought to your knees. You cannot speak with authority unless you've lived through fire. Pain becomes the passport into spiritual authority. This is why chosen ones often experience repeated losses of relationships, jobs, opportunities, even their own sense of identity. People they love turn away. Doors close without explanation. Everything they once built falls apart. And in the ashes, they are asked to rebuild, not the same life, but a new one. One built on truth. One built on surrender. One built on the foundation of what God is doing, not what they wanted. And perhaps the hardest part? The silence. God's chosen ones often endure seasons where it feels like heaven has gone quiet. They pray, and the sky feels like stone. They cry, but no comfort comes. It is in these seasons that God is not absent. He is present in disguise. Like a teacher during an exam, his silence is not abandonment. It is trust. Trust that you are growing. Trust that you are stronger than you think. Trust that you are learning to walk by faith and not by sight. But still, the pain is real. Chosen ones battle not only external hardships, but internal torment. The mind becomes a battlefield. Self-doubt creeps in. Anxiety screams louder. Depression tries to convince them to quit. And yet, day after day, they keep going. Not because they don't feel the pain, but because something greater is pushing them, the Spirit of God within them. A holy fire that refuses to die, no matter how cold the world becomes. Let me tell you this. The devil doesn't fight people who aren't a threat. If your life has been a constant struggle, it's likely because the enemy saw your potential before you did. He knew what would happen if you ever awakened to who you really are. He knew the damage you would do to darkness if you ever rose from the ashes. So he attacked early. He sent betrayal early. He sent trauma early. He tried to break you before you knew you were chosen. But what the enemy meant for evil, God is using for good. Every scar is becoming a source of healing. Every tear is watering the soil of your future. Every rejection is rerouting you to your divine destination. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. There is a power that only pain can unlock. There is a depth of compassion that only comes from heartbreak. There is a wisdom that only grows in the soil of suffering. And that is why the chosen ones suffer more. Not because they are weak, but because they are being trained to carry the sacred. They are being prepared to lead others out of the same prisons they once wept in. You see, comfort doesn't produce warriors. Fire does. Pain does. Loss does. It is in the fire where endurance is born. It is in the valley where vision is sharpened. It is in the silence where the voice of God is finally heard. And those who survive these seasons come out different. Not just stronger, but holier. Not just wiser, but anointed. And perhaps that is the point. To be anointed, not admired. To be faithful, not famous. To be broken enough to carry others. Because what God builds in the dark, He uses in the light. So if your life has been harder than most, stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" And start asking, "What is God doing in me?" The pain is the process. The suffering is the shaping. The crushing is the calling. You are not cursed. You are called. You are not broken. You are becoming. And even when you can't see it, heaven is watching. Angels are protecting. And your suffering is storing up a glory that far outweighs the present moment. Chosen one, this pain is not the end. It's the beginning of something eternal. Rising with purpose, the divine calling behind the pain. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the suffering no longer feels random. When the wounds begin to whisper. When the broken pieces start forming a picture. That moment, the turning point, is when the pain that once buried you becomes the very force that births you. Because behind every wound, there was a message. Behind every betrayal, there was a redirection. Behind every lonely night, there was a hidden hand shaping something eternal. You see, the pain was never pointless. It was purposeful. And now, it's time to rise. Chosen ones do not rise the way the world does. Their rising is not about fame, applause, or worldly gain. Their rising is a quiet awakening, a holy unfolding. It's the realization that everything they went through was meant to prepare them, not punish them. That they were never being destroyed, they were being designed. You begin to realize that your suffering gave birth to compassion. That your heartbreak made space for deeper love. That your silence with God taught you how to hear His whisper. You begin to see the divine thread that weaves through it all. And suddenly, your scars stop being sources of shame and become badges of honor. Testimonies. Sacred proof that you've walked through hell and still carried heaven inside you. And now, you carry something more powerful than any title or position, understanding. You've seen darkness and survived. You've felt pain that words can't express, and didn't let it make you bitter. You've been rejected and chose to keep your heart soft. That's the mark of someone who's been refined by God. That's the strength of someone who's ready to walk in divine purpose. Because the truth is, God doesn't waste pain. He transforms it. The very thing that tried to break you becomes the platform from which you speak life. The same pit that tried to bury you becomes the well others drink from. The lies spoken over you are replaced by truth spoken through you. You become a vessel, not just of survival, but of healing. You're not here just to exist. You're here to restore, to carry light into dark places, to walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere, to lay hands on what is broken and see it come alive again. Not because of who you are, but because of what you've endured and who lives within you. This is the divine calling behind the pain, to rise not just for yourself, but for those who are still in their valley, to be a voice for the voiceless, a guide for the lost, a testimony for the hopeless. You don't just carry your story, you carry God's glory. And here is the mystery. The more pain you've endured, the greater the capacity you now have to love, to lead, to heal, and to set others free. Because when you've walked through the fire, you speak with a different kind of authority. Not theory, truth. Not religion, revelation. You don't just talk about faith. You embody it. This is why the enemy attacked you so hard. Not because of your past, but because of your future. He saw the threat you posed to darkness. He saw the people you would reach, the souls you would awaken, the chains you would break. So he tried to bury you before you bloomed. But what he didn't realize is this. Chosen ones don't die in the dirt. They grow in it. You are not rising by your own strength. You are rising because God has declared, it is time. No more hiding. No more shrinking. No more believing the lies that say you're not enough. You are more than enough. Not because you've never fallen, but because you refuse to stay down. Now, let me speak directly to you. Your life matters. Your story matters. Your pain has meaning. And even if no one else sees the road you've walked, heaven saw it all. Every tear. Every silent prayer. Every night you wanted to give up, but didn't. And heaven kept the record, not to shame you, but to show you. This is why you were chosen. You were not chosen to be perfect. You were chosen to be real, to be raw, to be broken and still believing, to be doubted and still standing, to be misunderstood and still loving. You were chosen to be a reflection of grace, a living, breathing example of what it looks like when God lives in someone who has nothing left but faith. And now, the world needs you. Not the polished version, not the version that hides the scars, but the real you, the healed you, the humbled you, the resurrected you. You see, rising is not about proving your strength. It's about revealing His. It's not about walking out with pride. It's about walking out with power. The kind of power that doesn't come from education or connections or money. The kind that comes from surviving storms and still having peace. From losing everything and still having purpose. So, rise, not just because you can, but because others need you to. There are people waiting on the other side of your obedience. There are souls who will find hope through your healing. There are chains that will break the moment you speak. You are the miracle someone else is praying for. Chosen one, your suffering was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a legacy. And now, you are stepping into the chapter where the pain turns into power and the trials turn into triumph. You didn't just survive for yourself. You rose because you were always meant to lead others out of their own fire. This is your calling. This is your moment. This is why you were chosen. Walking in power, becoming the vessel for others. There comes a time in the journey of every chosen one when the fire no longer consumes, it empowers. The wounds no longer bleed, they shine. The voice that once cried out for rescue becomes the voice that calls others out of darkness. You are no longer just the one who survived the storm. You are now the one who walks others through it. This is what it means to walk in divine power. This is what it means to become a vessel. Many people chase power, worldly power, fame, influence, control. But the power that chosen ones carry is different. It's not loud. It's not boastful. It doesn't need a platform or recognition. It flows from surrender. It flows from silence. It flows from knowing that your strength comes not from what you've done, but from what you've endured and who you allowed yourself to become through the pain. You see, your trials were never meant to destroy you. They were meant to strip away everything that could not stay. Ego, pride, fear, false identity, all of it burned away. And what's left? a soul that knows God, a heart that feels deeply, eyes that see differently, hands that carry healing, words that carry weight. You've been forged not just to survive, but to serve. Now, you walk in power, but not for yourself. You are not the hero of your story. God is, and you are his vessel, a sacred container for wisdom, grace, truth, and compassion. You don't walk with answers, but you walk with presence. And in that presence, people are changed. This is why the world needs the chosen ones. Not because they are perfect, but because they are real. They have known the depths of despair, and therefore can speak to those still drowning in it. They have walked through betrayal and abandonment, so they know how to comfort the lonely. They have been rejected, so they know how to welcome others without judgment. You now understand that your scars are not signs of weakness. They are signs of transformation. Each one tells a story, not of defeat, but of victory. Quiet, holy victory. Victory that was earned in midnight battles no one saw. You wear those scars not to prove you suffered, but to show that healing is possible. You are the evidence that survival is not the end, resurrection is. And now, your life is no longer your own. It becomes a message, a mirror, a map. People will be drawn to you, not because of what you say, but because of the spirit you carry. They'll sense the peace you fought so hard to find. They'll feel the light that once had to claw its way through your darkness. And through you, they will glimpse what is possible when God chooses someone, and that someone chooses to rise. This is what it means to become the vessel. A vessel doesn't speak of its glory. It reveals the glory of what it carries. A vessel doesn't decide what it holds. It simply remains open, available, surrendered. The chosen ones are not the strongest, the smartest, or the most impressive. They are simply the most willing. Willing to be used. Willing to be poured out. Willing to go where others will not. And yes, there will still be battles. The road doesn't suddenly become easy because you've awakened. In fact, now that you're carrying purpose, the resistance may increase. But the difference is this: you now know who you are. You now know why you're here. You no longer fight for your survival. You fight for your assignment. When others run from broken places, you enter. When others avoid messy people, you embrace. When others hide their wounds, you reveal yours. Not for sympathy, but for connection. You are not here to be admired. You are here to be available. To say to the world, if God can use someone like me, he can use you too. This is what walking in power looks like. It is not domination, it is service. It is not pride, it is presence. It is not control, it is compassion. It is not about being the light. It is about carrying the light into dark places and refusing to let it die. Your very existence becomes a form of warfare, not with weapons, but with truth. You don't just speak truth, you embody it. You don't just offer hope. You are the hope that others have been praying for. You are the reminder that it's not too late, that redemption is real, that the fire may come, but it cannot consume what God has already claimed. So now, chosen one, the time for hiding is over. The time for shrinking, doubting, delaying, it's done. You are no longer the victim of your pain. You are the steward of it. You are the channel through which heaven flows. You are the one who will help others rise. Because here's the secret. When God chooses someone, he doesn't just choose them for themselves. He chooses them for others. Your pain made you humble. Your process made you wise. Your surrender made you holy. And your journey made you ready. So go. Not as someone seeking glory, but as someone walking in it. Not because you've figured it all out, but because you've finally accepted who you are. You are a vessel. You are a light. You are a weapon in the hands of grace. You are God's chosen, not because you are flawless, but because you are faithful. And now, the world needs you to rise. Not louder, but truer. Not bolder, but deeper. Not for applause, but for impact. Not to be seen, but so that he can be seen through you. This is your calling. This is your commission. This is the purpose behind the pain. And now, it's your time.